Continuing our look around the BC Hockey League season previews for 2016-17, joined right now by the head coach and general manager of the Trail Smoke Eaters. It is Cam Keith. Hey, Cam, thanks very much for taking the time to chat here.
Anytime, Brian. It's my pleasure to represent Trail this year and get going with things. We're really excited what the energy that we got here in Trail and the kids that we brought in, and I think it's going to be a good representation of community and Trail moving forward.
So looking ahead to what sort of holes you had to fill in the roster, a bit of a unique situation for you in the fact that you don't get hired until June. You hadn't seen any of these players play last season, but when it came to recruiting, being that you might have been behind the eight ball a little bit, what were you looking for to fill some of the holes that you were aware of on the Smoke Eaters roster?
Now, when I was looking at the type of player that I wanted to bring in to kind of culture, so to speak, of what I wanted to create was just character. You're right, it was behind the eight ball, and the fact that I couldn't watch these kids, I kind of had to go word of mouth. But the best kind of resource you have is to talk to the coach from last year, and you can always take most of the stuff with a grain of salt, their skill level, because a lot of times they don't know how it translates to BCHL. But one thing that's usually pretty universal is how a kid works for a coach, and if they used him as an assistant captain, was he a leader in the room? And I've always been a guy that believes in you. If you create a team that everyone's a leader in their own mind, whether it's they lead by example on the ice, or if they're a guy that's just vocal in the room and kind of echo what the coach is saying, you create that kind of atmosphere in your locker room that's going to carry you forward. I mean, as a coach, you can only say so many things. You can only motivate them in so many different ways. But if you have that character in the room, the guys that hold each other accountable, you can really create, a good team just based off that, just off the hard work and kind of blue collar mentality. And that's what I went after right off the hop. It's just who's got character, who will come in and work day in and day out, and that's what we can build a solid foundation on moving forward.
So the team only misses the playoffs by 3 points last season. What can fans in Trail expect from your club this year compared to last?
Well, I think they can definitely expect the same in the way that I think we're going to be competitive, a team that's going to be pushing for a playoff spot. I think the fans and the coaching staff and myself are realistic. We know it's a very tough division. It's really tough to put a pigeonhole on a certain team that, they don't have as many returning players, because when you have really good programs like the Penticton, Vernon, Salmon Arm, West Kelowna, and Merritt, they even if they are losing players, they just reload really well, and they have those reputation as bringing in really good young talent. So you don't really know how everything's going to shape up until we start to see how we stack up against those teams, because realistically we have to win those series to get a playoff spot. But I mean, just from going through training camp, I know that we're going to be competitive, because our team is going to really work hard in our defensive end and keep games close. We're not a team, we know that we're not going to have the equivalent skill level as your Pentictons and Salmon Arms and those type of teams. So we have to find other ways to win by keeping games close, making the right plays, doing those small things that will keep you close in games, and then hoping that some of our older guys, we have some good talented group of returning forwards that we believe we can lean on for offense, and then the rest of the character will kind of carry us through to hopefully keep us competitive and keep us in that playoff hunt.
You mentioned the returning players, and it's easy for anyone to look at the stats from last season and look at a guy like Ross Armour or a guy like Connor Brown-Molosky and say, okay, we know what this player brings to the table. But are there any players who were on the Smoke Eaters roster last year that, and again, you haven't seen it, but the other members of your staff have, that maybe look like they're ready to take a bit of a quantum leap, like maybe in a bigger role this year, or maybe in a different role this season or something like that? Any guys that come to mind?
Yeah, well, actually, there's a kid that his name is Blaine Caton. He started the year last year in Vernon and kind of struggled. I know he had some injury problems, and he was actually, when I looked at just his stats, kind of got a report on him from the coaching staff the year before, that he was a kid that might be a bubble kid, might fit into what we're doing. And I just had the pleasure of witnessing, a transformation of a player during main camp into a kid that not only earned a spot but solidified a spot. And he's a kid that when we did captain votes got a lot of votes to be potential assistant captain. We haven't made our announcements yet, but he's in the mix, and I don't know how high his ceiling is offensively, but he's going to be one of those kids that's just in there every game, gives you everything he's got, and I see potentially he's a kid that could really step up and find his niche offensively just from the work that he put in the summer. And he just fits my mold so perfectly. I'm going to have a really hard time not putting him in the spots to be successful. So especially for him, like you said, we have the Ross Armers, we have the Josh Lamb from Bois, Connor Bramolowski, Kale Howard, another kid that we believe is really going to step up. We got a lot of kids that are on that cusp, and they all kind of need to make that step forward. And if they all can make that step forward this year, elevate their game up to that next level, that would make us successful.
Now, as a guy who played in trail, and it's definitely when you get into some of the smaller markets, the community-owned teams in the BC Hockey League or in junior hockey overall, how important is it to have a number of players return, guys who know the expectations, are familiar with not only the system that the team's got or the structure of the organization, but the community as a whole?
Yeah, I think, especially because I'm a new coach, the system, the structure isn't as important because I'm kind of putting in my own brand. A lot of these kids are actually I'm already getting feedback of how much different it is from this year, from last year, and it's just a different feeling out process for these, even from the returner kids. But when you have kids like Connor Bramolowski, Ross Armour, Spencer McLean, Mitch Stabley, the kids that understand the community and how it works, that's the biggest part because it's a small town and you have to be involved in the community. You have to have a positive reputation in a small town like this because it is so fragile. So those kids can kind of guide the new kids when they come in so that they understand that you are always under a microscope. Even when you're going to a gas station or you're just driving in your car, people know who you are, rather than if you're in a bigger place like Langley or Surrey when, I'm not saying you can get away with stuff, but it's just those small things you have to pay really close attention to because your reputation is so fragile, especially when you have other junior teams in the area that do draw some of our fans if they're not happy with how trail is going. So, like you said, that part is actually really vitally important, that they understand the pride and that needs to be taken when you put on a trail jersey and you're part of this organization, that you are a representative at all times. And not only on the ice, but as soon as you leave this arena, every situation you are under a microscope, and you have to kind of represent our organization in a positive manner in every situation.
Being that we're on the cusp of the season, is it safe to say that there's already a personality with this team of the Trail Smoke Eaters, or is it a bit too early to say?
No, it's the personality's already come through. We actually, in our second game against Penticton, we had our full lineup, and the guys, true and true, played every minute, every shift to exactly how we wanted to play. And I kind of started to try to push them a certain direction, but it's better if they kind of develop their own identity within the locker room. And it naturally came out. Even when there were parts of the game we were down, nobody gave up. Everyone played hard right to the end of the buzzer and finished their checks, did everything that you would hope the guys do early on. These are usually things that when a team gel, sometimes it happens later on the season. Obviously, you want it to happen soon, but you never really expect it to happen at main camp. But the boys really came together earlier than expected, which is a huge plus. And then the challenges of the coach is to make sure you maintain that cognitive group that you've gained in training camp, you never know how the situation is going to unfold. We have a very tough opening 2 games against West Kelowna, the defending world champs, and As hockey can happen, sometimes you might not have the best start. You have to make sure that there's still a positive outlook, and the guys kind of hold that identity and don't sway because of certain results that might happen.
One last question before I let you go, Cam. What does it mean to be a Trail Smoke Eaters player?
It's tradition, it's pride, it's knowing that you're a part of something that's been here for, I can't throw a number on it because I don't know the exact amount of years that Trail's been an actual organization, but it's, their early days from when they were the last world, I think, club team to be the world champs, and it's a part of something. When you're in the arena, when you're wearing the jersey, it's a symbol of tradition, and you have to understand that when you play for Trail, you're part of something that's special, something that's been here engraved for a very long time, and will be here for a very long time, and it's something that your actions and how you do things are going to kind of be echoed through time. So it's something to take pride in, that you are, a part of a great tradition. I think it gets carried through, and your actions will never be forgotten.
All right, Cam Keith, the head coach and general manager of the Trail Smoke Eaters, looking ahead to the 2016-17 season. Hey, Cam, thanks very much for doing this, and best of luck this year in the BCHL.
Appreciate it, bro.